Right. Right. Good afternoon, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this MDC Alliance press conference, which relates to our national voter registration drive. This is a key pillar of our efforts to restore the will of the people, to ensure victory in elections, and encourage maximum participation of the citizenry in our foremost task, which is to win Zimbabwe for change. The MDC Alliance is confident that when every citizen plays their part and the people's leaders play their important role of inspiring hope and a thirst for change, big things can happen to improve the lives of Zimbabwean people. However, before we get into the meat of today's presentation, a few remarks. Zimbabwe is at a crossroads where we are faced with a battle for the soul of the nation. Democracy, economic stability, and the ability to earn a decent livelihood are not only under threat, but they've been bludgeoned by ZANU-PF. The nation is in a state of deep crisis, a crisis of bad governance, performance illegitimacy, and the wholesale breakdown of the social contract between citizens and the state. ZANU-PF has failed. Mr. Mnangagwa is illegitimate. And evidence of this crisis exists all around us. The homes and livelihoods of poor citizens struggling to make a living in the midst of a global pandemic and in the middle of winter have been destroyed in Bare, Chitungwiza, and other parts of Harare Metropolitan Province. This has been executed by central government through ZANU-PF's Tafadzwa Mguti and Oliver Chidao. Operation Murambachina 2 is a stark reminder of the unquestionable fact that ZANU-PF is against the people. It is at war with the people, and it does not have the people at heart. And we must not forget the acute crisis in our education sector. Our teachers remain in a chronic state of incapacitation, and the state neglects and refuses to pay heed to their legitimate demands. We have said before, and we will say again, a strong, modern education system that is well-funded and fit for purpose is the bedrock of a nation's success. This is what we promise will transpire under an MDC Alliance government. The land issue remains wholly unresolved as property rights continue to be violated arbitrarily and unconstitutionally by the state. The arbitrary, compulsory acquisition of land is continuing, with thriving farms run by Black Zimbabweans being the latest target of ZANU-PF's anti-people land dispossession program. Under an MDC Alliance government, property rights will be respected. Land tenure will be availed to move our agricultural economy from being a largely subsistence one to a commercially viable one, as outlined in our smart agricultural policy. We believe in creating an ecosystem that allows and promotes productivity, one that does not fight it. And the economy. The economy, ladies and gentlemen, has stagnated. The business community spoke strongly against the disastrous effects of the ill-thought-out SI 127 of 2021, which creates an artificial exchange rate that's resulted in distortions in the market. We strongly agree with them. We call for the statutory instrument's urgent repeal. Our inflation rate remains in the triple-digit region and still one of the highest in the world. It sits, at least officially, at 162%. The Consumer Council of Zimbabwe has said that a family of 6 needs at least $40,000 to survive. Yet the average civil servant earns a paltry $19,000, not even half of what is needed to live a decent life. The common person cannot afford to put food on the table. And corruption. The Auditor General's report has come out and it tells a sad and ongoing tale of looting. It's the citizens that pay the price of looting. And so we demand answers and urgent investigation into the outcome of that report, redacted as it may be, because it's the citizens who bear the brunt of the bad governance, and so we demand accountability. Corruption is killing us. ZAC should be disbanded if it does not have the capacity or political will to investigate the chronic corruption that is killing us, if it cannot act independently. But of course, this must be part of a raft of wider political reforms, as we repeatedly demanded as the MDC Alliance. And there is a lot more. The crises in the public health system, the shortages of vaccines, our broken down infrastructure, our dilapidated transport system, and chronic despair among the youth as expressed in the drug crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, the call to action could not be clearer. As President Nelson Chamisa said in our Agenda 2021 Citizens Convergent for Change address, we have to come together and form a united front, a broad alliance to defeat ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF has destroyed Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF must go. The MDC Alliance has no hesitation in leading the charge, which is why we stand here today firm as the nation's only credible democratic alternative and ready to win Zimbabwe for change. And citizens, we need you. We need you to partner with us on this important journey. The big fights that we've taken on, the fight for a people's government, the fight for a return to legitimacy and democracy, the fight for livelihoods and a better life for all Zimbabweans, the fight against corruption, the fight in defense of the Constitution and constitutionalism, all require your participation. And we've no doubt that the fight to win Zimbabwe for change, the fight for a better, brighter, and more prosperous Zimbabwe will be won, which is why we are championing this struggle. And so we have to vote, and decisively so. Without further ado, let me introduce our Secretary for Elections, Councillor Ian Makone, who's going to speak to our national voter registration drive. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Fadzai, for those remarks. I was almost tempted to say, don't spoil it by introducing a whole host of technical issues. Before MDC Alliance is in a position to introduce that host of policy improvements, we've got to get there first. There's an election to be won, and there's a role for all of us, including the fourth state, of which you are some of them. Let me welcome you all to this second press statement that we've engaged with you this year. Now I need to focus our attention on voter registration. When we last met, we launched our 20 principles for electoral reforms under the term PRICE. And I hope that after that presentation, you were all able to have sight of that document. If you do not, we've got John Moyes here. And anyone who's not given him your email addresses, please feel free to do so, because we like everything that we say to receive wide coverage. And that is your role, to report without fear or favor. We note that since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in December of 2019, the world was forced to change the way it approached things and to adjust. I'm glad that apart from me this time, because I'm talking, everyone has got their mask on. I only wish the place was a little bigger so that we could also exercise social distancing, but be that as it may. Zimbabwe is no exception and is scheduled to hold harmonized general elections in 2023, just 24 months away. Yet a number of critical issues relating to elections remain unaddressed, or at best, they are being conducted at a snail pace, and this is dangerous. For that matter, without due consultation. It's an area of concern to us. Among the key issues of particular concern to MDC Alliance are voter registration, diaspora vote, voter education, and delimitation of constituency boundaries, apart from other processes relating to the management of results. We invite you to appreciate the significance of these electoral processes and the need for a collective voice, as Fadzai mentioned, towards their resolution. We've each got a role to play. Results management will receive particular attention in a subsequent interaction with yourselves. So let me turn to voter registration. We note with serious concern the paltry number of persons registered as voters since the last harmonized elections in 2018. On the admission of the Zimbabwe Election Commission themselves, ZEC, they registered less than 1,500 persons between August of 2018 and December of 2020. In our opinion, these low figures are largely attributable to the limited number of registration centers, 66 operational centers countrywide, you can well imagine. These centers are staffed by skeletal staff, understood to be 30% of normal complement. And this reflects the prioritization that ZEC gives to this function. The limited number of registration centers entail that prospective registrants will have to travel scores of kilometers to access these services. And you know, I wouldn't do it. Why should I expect someone else to do it? So there's clearly a challenge that ZEC needs to resolve. When the biometric voter registration exercise, BVR, was introduced in 2017, it was established that each BVR machine was capable of registering one voter every 4 minutes. That's what we were told by them. And there was a time and motion study. This standard was applied to determine the number of voter registration teams that would be required for a smooth registration process during that year. Based on this standard, each team could theoretically register a maximum of 120 people in an 8-hour shift. It is disturbing that some ZEC offices have lowered the bar to as low as 20 registrations per day. Whole country, Two problems arise from this current arrangement. First, distances that intending registrants have to travel to registration centers impose a tax burden that most of us cannot afford. We therefore call for permanent registration facilities to be established or assigned to strategic centers in each ward in order to provide an adequate registration service to all citizens. Second, imposing such a low daily target per center has resulted in people being turned away without being registered. And chances are that they would not return due to the long distances traveled. We say that ZEC registration centers should continue to be guided by the standard of 100 persons per machine per 8-hour shift, which was established scientifically in 2017. We're conscious of the need to maintain social distancing and other measures intended to minimize the spread of COVID-19. This can be respected and yet still provide the service that citizens are entitled to receive. The ZEC teams are some of the frontline workers in the fight against this pandemic, and their protection through vaccination does not need emphasizing. We therefore reiterate that ZEC should establish the capacity and the will to register in excess of 300,000 new voters per year, a number that is consistent with the demographic grouping of persons reaching voting age each year. ZEC is a long way from achieving this achievable goal of registering more than 300,000 voters per year. This is a responsibility over which they have exclusivity, and Zimbabweans only demand that they do whatever it takes to accomplish this goal. Since the last harmonized elections, the backlog of unregistered young people has risen to close on to 1 million. And the question begging an answer is why? More importantly, Zimbabweans demand a blitz as soon as possible to rectify this anomaly, which disenfranchises a significant proportion of the population. MDC Alliance are an interested stakeholder, and like many others, is ready to assist ZEC meaningfully through regular consultation. Sadly, our requests for consultative engagement with ZEC, between ZEC and stakeholders, including ourselves, have not been taken up, and we wonder why. Voter education awareness. The current voter education awareness campaign by ZEC is lukewarm. The law gives the Commission exclusive rights to determine the voter education timeframe, particularly the involvement of civic society, who traditionally is allowed to conduct voter education just a few months before a crucial election. This limitation, which is unnecessary, partly explains voter apathy, and we urge ZEC to recognize its own limitations in the conduct of an effective voter education campaign, and to allow civic society to participate in voter education on an ongoing basis. The passive approach of ZEC has resulted in discouragement among the target group, and a coordinated awareness campaign is needed to overcome this apathy. The diaspora. MDC Alliance makes no apology for supporting the call to extend registration and voting facilities to Zimbabweans in the diaspora. No meaningful reasons, even financial, have been put forward to explain this resistance by ZEC and the government. It is an open secret that the diaspora remittances back home have sustained families and contributed significantly to the nation in the supply of foreign exchange. You want their money, but deny them the vote. It doesn't work. MDC Alliance is ready, as are other stakeholders, to input into the practical arrangements for voter registration and voting facilities at designated points in the diaspora. Several countries do it, And once again, our fellow Zimbabweans only want similar measures to be implemented here. Voting rights for marginalized communities. MDC Alliance notes with serious concern the disenfranchisement of marginalized communities that fail to acquire identity documents for a variety of reasons. A case in point is some descendants of civilians who perished during the terrible Gukurahundi of the 1980s, especially in Matabeleland. These undocumented citizens continue to live on the edge of society, and successive generations will also be marginalized unless central government steps in with a program to regularize their citizenship rights by issuing identity documents. We intend to tackle the question of national identity documents as a standalone issue in a future submission, because there is more than meets the eye. Delimitation. MDC Alliance has learned through the media that the delimitation timeframes set by ZEC will see the delimitation report being finalized by December 2022. This is effectively 6 months at best before the 2023 harmonized elections. The population census brought forward to 2021 was correctly slated to enfranchise more people. This ZEC timeframe, however, is clearly calculated such that the resulting delimitation report cannot be implemented in time for the 2023 elections. The law provides that a delimitation report with new boundaries should be finalized 6 months before the forthcoming elections to which they apply, failure of which the country will hold elections using the old boundaries. You can see in this thing, we are already sounding that there is a backdoor which will enable them to run this next coming election on the basis of the current boundaries, and it is dangerous. Delimitation results are very critical to determining ward and constituency boundaries, taking into account voter density for each ward or constituency. It is clear from the 2018 elections that we have constituencies that are too big and some too small. And there is a case for addressing these disparities before the 2023 harmonized elections. We urge ZEC to use the powers they have and ensure that new boundaries are drawn up which reflect population realities, and that these are factored in the 2023 harmonized elections. Zimbabweans await a clear statement in this regard, and that this process be seen to be transparent to the nation, and in particular to stakeholders. Let's try and summarize everything that I've been saying in the form of specific proposals. ZEC should decentralize voter registration by setting up a permanent registration center in each ward. Each such center, acting as a mobile unit, should periodically visit and register voters at polling stations. That's the first one. Then we're saying ZEC should implement measures to clear the backlog of unregistered youths who have become of voting age since the 2018 elections. Clearly, voter registration blitz is called for. On voter education, ZEC should arrange for civic society to participate in voter education on an ongoing basis, increasing national coverage and hence overcoming voter apathy. In the diaspora, government through ZEC should extend voting rights to citizens in the diaspora and put in place logistics that enable citizens to vote from designated host countries. Similarly, prisoners and the hospitalized should also enjoy their voting rights, and therefore logistics should be put in place to enable them to register to vote and vote if they so wish. On delimitation, finally, the ZEC should commit to factoring in the 2021 population census as input into the electoral boundaries, and most certainly the national map following the voter registration blitz that we have proposed. These new boundaries are within the capacity of ZEC to draw up and to do so in time for the 2023 harmonized elections. What we see at present does not give us confidence. During our last interaction with the press, we undertook to engage in a national discourse on reforms necessary for an election outcome that is not contested, and tabled our 20 principles, as I said at the beginning, for electoral reforms. They are called PRICE. I would really urge you to continue reviewing them. If you think we've missed the boat, tell us. In this installment, we've raised several issues relating to voter registration, and we urge stakeholders to engage with us, to engage with ZEC, and to engage with the nation on these serious matters. In particular, we strongly urge ZEC to do their job as mandated by the law. A key success factor for ZEC is going to be the number of persons that they register. And I would hope that this is a statistic which they will, on an ongoing basis, be appraising the nation. We just want to know how many people they've registered each week. Currently, the backlog of 1 million people, mainly young people, is a tragedy, because this demographic group will remain at the margins of the democratic process. And yet, we all claim to be committed to democracy. I thank you for turning up and look forward to our next interaction, where we again will pick up on one or more issues so that you understand at each stage where we're coming from and what solutions we propose.
Thank you very much to Secretary for Elections, Councillor Ian Makone, for that eloquent exposition of the NDC Alliance position on national voter registration. Obviously, we continue to urge every single Zimbabwean to register to vote, ensure your family is registered to vote, ensure your friends are registered to vote, ensure everybody you know of voter age above 18 is doing their part, so that, as I said, we win Zimbabwe for change. Without further ado, I'm now going to defer to members of the Fourth Estate. Do you have any questions for Councillor Makone? If so, we'll entertain a few, and then thereafter we'll wrap up our press conference. Or has he covered everything?
Yeah, it was long.
It was long. Okay,
It was longer.
we will ensure.
Next time we'll reduce it.
We'll also ensure that a version of it, a written version, is also available, so
Yes.
that everyone can capture exactly what we're saying. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'm going to, yes, Blessed.
My name is Blessed Mhlangu from Heart and Soul TV and radio. I just have a couple of questions. The first question is that what are you effectively doing, apart from holding press conferences, engage ZEC to table your issues and concerns? And if so, what has been the response?
Yes.
The other question is that
Sorry, Blessed, let's maybe just address that, and then I'll defer back to you for your question.
Yes.
Mr. Makone?
Yes, what are we doing? I said earlier on that ZEC by law has the exclusive responsibility to register voters. We can't deny that. We can say all we want, but that is the fact. Other than knocking at their door, do your job, and we suggest you do it this way, which is exactly what I've been outlining.
Okay.
What
and
else
then,
is there?
What's your next question, Blessed?
my next question is that the MDC Alliance appears to always always complain. Every time you want to go to elections, you complain about the ballot paper, you complain about the ink allege it moves from one place to the other. I mean, when are you going to stop complaining?
I make no apologies for complaining against what is wrong. However, for each complaint we raise, we proffer solutions. And this is what I've tried to do here. We say we've got 1 million young people that are not registered. And we suggested that they should set up, establish a blitz so that these people have got an opportunity to register. These people are generally poor, and therefore don't expect them to travel 50 kilometers to go and register. That's expecting too much of them. So for every complaint we raise, we proffer a solution.
Thank you very much, Secretary Makone. You call it complaining, we call it holding them accountable. Yes, sir.
My name is Love James from Richard. I think in the run-up to 2018 elections.
Lovejoy, can I just ask you to raise your voice that we will capture your question?
Okay. In the run-up to the 2018 elections, I think we had a number of reforms that you're calling for. I think chief among them being the demilitarization of ZEC, media reforms, etc., etc. Has anything changed from that? Have you moved from that? Have you added more reforms? What exactly are you saying ZEC should reform from?
Sadly, none of the ones that you've outlined have been addressed. And you must also ask yourself why. It is not in the interest of some other party that these reforms should take place. And this is why we're talking about, we continue to drum up support from this fourth state. We continue to drum up support from all other stakeholders, because this is an issue which will only go away when we've all converged around those reform issues. If I talked about our President Chamisa launching Convergence for Change, this is what we're talking about. And I'm glad that you raised the point. It is not a question of we have not achieved those reforms, therefore we do nothing. I will only stop when we've achieved them, and we will achieve.
All right. Maybe as a follow-up, I know Blessed it also
Lovejoy, I'm going to definitely come back to you, I promise, but I want to give the lady at the back a chance, if it's okay.
Thank you so much. With the limitations, Councillor Makone, that you have highlighted, is the MDC Alliance running any voter registration campaigns? And if so, would you say how many of your members are registering today?
I can assure you that we're doing that. And this is why we came across this bottleneck, which is called a standard of 20 registrants per day. Our activists on the ground, imagine how dispiriting it is that you've mobilized people to go and vote and register as voters, and they say, no, sorry, the quota for today is done. But we have not stopped. We'll continue to do it.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Chipa position yekuti mukona kuendesa mabvunzo MDC Chamisa. Ndiyo position yakatereka nemafungiro.
Ndakuzvizwa zvakanaka vakati chii?
Vabiti mutedzero wacho.
Oh, vabiti. Okay. Yeah.
Takanzwa vachiti imi munogona kuendesa rudzo. Muchinzi MDC Chamisa. Saka usati ndo position yepati here kana kutanga kwangu kunotaurwa kwabiti in personal capacity.
Generally, that is a fair question where I defer to our spokes. But before she responds to you, please understand that the context in which our leadership BT was talking. So maybe you might.
It's okay. Now, just to say that what we've said on the name is that we are going to go to the people. And once we've spoken to and consulted our structures, so all Vice President BT was saying is that, when it comes to MDC Alliance or our movement, we could use any name under the sun. The issue is not the name. The issue is that we're the real democratic alternative. That's why ZANU-PF continuously is trying to bludgeon us. That's why the Afrobarometer report only mentions us. That's why Monzora is afraid of elections and is trying to collude with ZANU-PF to ban them, because they are afraid of the will of the people. Saka zita muchaudzwa mukufamba kwenguva kuti tichazvamisa sei. But the real issue is, never mind zita ratichashandisa, are the reforms there? Are the fundamentals for a free and fair playing field in place so that the will of the people is respected? Thank you. So I'll go back to Blessed, then I'll go to Lovejoy. But maybe before that, there's a hand that hasn't spoken there, and I'll come to you, ma'am. I'll come to you.
Okay, thank you.
I beg your pardon?
Okay,
Okay, Paida.
How are you, brother?
Good to see you. Paida, we need you to just speak in your loudest voice so that we capture your question.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
I have two interlinked issues. The first one relates to the demographics. You spoke so much about the demographics. After the 2018 elections, have we had for the party, does it have the demographics of the people who cast their ballot, so that at least we could know how many? Because from where I come from, I understand that less than 1 in 5 between the ages 18 and 22 did cast their ballot, even if they were on the voters. The second one is in relation to what the media can do and so forth. I hope you are aware of Justice Mafusire ruling in the case Veritas versus the BC.
Yes.
And what has the part done to make sure that that judgment is enforceable and you are holding to account the public media?
Thank you.
Okay. So take on the last one, but let me take the first one. The demographics of people that voted. It's true that we could have had more young people voting. I accept that. But it goes to confirm the issue that we raised, the need for concerted voter registration, particularly targeting the young people, that particular age group. It also was the highest in terms of the numbers registered, by the way, but it did not reflect to the same levels that we would have wanted for them to turn out and vote. The question really is, they will ask the question, why do I vote? And it's something that we all together need to convince them that there is no democratic alternative to voting. And it is the future of your particular age group and your youngsters that is at stake. And short of you resorting to other less democratic methods, you have only got the ballot box to save us all.
Thank you. Paida, on Justice Mafusile's judgment, that's a very good question. I think he highlighted what I think we all know, that the public media, whether it's ZBC, some call it ZANU-BC for good reason, the Herald, all the state media is captured by ZANU-PF. And we continuously hold these bodies to account because they use taxpayer money to run their activity. So we will consistently demand reform in that area. And it's in fact one of the 20 principles that we seek action on in PRIZE. But the fact that they ignore court rulings and they fail to uphold the Constitution doesn't mean that we as a movement have sat back and done nothing. We are doing everything that we can to use alternative forms of media, to use WhatsApp, to use radio, to use other forms of media, to use even pamphlets, especially in the rural areas. I think you've seen our rural strategy unfold. We're doing everything that we can to ensure that we reach the people. Nothing can substitute, the meetings that we have with people, hearing their feedback and so on. So we will continue to fight that and at the same time seek alternatives to ensure that the message of change is heard. Blessed, I'm going to come to you. Sorry, was your hand up?
No.
Oh, okay. Blessed, you had a second question and I promised to come back.
It was
Lovejoy, do you still have your question?
Oh yeah. So, like I said, Blessed had talked about engagements with ZEC, which I believe are very key in pushing for your narrative. But as a party, as an opposition party, there have been accusations thrown at you that you want to do this alone, of which the belief is that this is not an MDC thing, this is not a ZANU-PF thing, this is a collective effort. Have you tried to engage other political parties, opposing political parties, to push for this agenda?
Yes, we have, and we're in that process. But let me just underline this point by advising you that in each letter that we've written to ZEC, and we had them, we have not asked for an exclusive meeting with MDC Alliance. We've asked for a consultative process with stakeholders, of which political parties are a component. So rest assured that this is all about Zimbabwe and not a particular political party. And that's what we do. So thanks.
If I may respectfully just add to what Councillor Makone is saying, under our broad alliance agenda, we're not actually just confining ourselves to partisan political organizations. There are very important stakeholders, including the church, that we're working to build an alliance with, including the students' movement, including the women's movement, civic organizations, NGOs, international NGOs, the international community, to ensure that there is this convergence, because this is not something that's merely good for the MDC Alliance. The upholding of constitutional democracy and constitutionalism is something that's at the core of ensuring that our democracy deepens. And we'll continue bringing together all those forces, all those different faces, and making sure that we speak with one voice. Certainly the ones that are sincere. There are ones that aren't sincere, but that's a conversation for another day. Yes, ma'am. Covered. Okay, so is there anyone else? Right, all that remains, journalists, thank you so much. We strongly appreciate your time in coming and covering us. We look forward to continually partnering with you. As Councillor Makone says, we are running a series. In fact, it's part of a broader campaign that we're about to launch on electoral matters, including voter registration, electoral reform, because we know that this is at the core of what we need so that we win Zimbabwe for change. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks.
You are welcome.